Greetings! Today we discuss Vulture from Jiminy, HamilHeads, Tigbot's trauma, and so much more on this episode of
Ahoy, boogers! Line. Where's Bilbo Q card when you need
We fired him.
Welcome to Bear Ghost Invents the podcast. This is the podcast where we plump into the who's and what's it's galore of the inner workings of Bear Ghost. I've got the whole gang here. I got drummer Buttons.
Hello.
I got bass player Do.
Bass player Do.
And I got robot Tigbot.
Why, hello there, everybody.
Hello, Tigbot.
We also have guitarist, vocalist Ryan Abel, who never introduces himself anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, how long has it been since I introduced myself?
I don't know, like 10 years.
Yeah, that's true. When meeting people in social situations, they extend their hand to shake my hand, and I just scowl at them. I'll never introduce myself to you. How's everybody doing? Everybody enjoying season 2 of Andor?
That's fantastic.
I haven't watched anything past what we started.
Oh, no. Really? You didn't watch the 3rd episode that night?
Third episode's so good.
It makes the other 2 episodes way better.
I am still sick from the tour, in case you can't tell.
Oh my God.
I have a big garbage
Get
voice.
over it.
I'm trying. I have an upper respiratory thing that won't go the away.
Baby Andu have widow baby respiratory illness.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to start talking about Star Wars on May the 4th. Oh, wait. Now everybody knows that we're recording on May the 4th.
No, our podcast is live all the time.
Even if you repeat it.
It's Bilbo Q card just helping us out.
Bilbo Q card. He's a secret asset of the Bear Ghost team.
Of course he is. He's a Baggins.
Okay. On this day, we are talking about the final song on the album, Jiminy. We are talking about Vulture today. I know there are a lot of people that are very excited to hear us get into the nitty-gritty. And to those people, I say, no.
We knew it going into it that Sirens was kind of a downer episode because that song has a lot of downer material in it. And this one is a double downer.
I think it's pronounced Debbie Downer.
We're going to cry this whole time. See? It's crying.
Do you think, this is such a dumb joke, that Carrie Fisher's mom's name was Double Reynolds and not Debbie Reynolds?
Ugh.
That's really bad.
You guys will get it later.
That's what it was. Too highbrow.
You're not ready for that, but your kids are going to love it.
Yeah, they'll know who Debbie Reynolds is.
She's the one who makes those little cakes, right?
Yes.
Well, she did when she was little.
Now that's a joke.
Do we want to start on vocals?
We can maybe just talk about that, and then we can talk about the instrumentality of it all.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll start with this because we did our Jiminy behind-the-scenes thing around the release time, and everybody commented that we didn't really talk about Vulture and what Vulture is about. We just talked about the music in Vulture. Well, one thing is we get really excited writing music, and so when we talk about songs, we tend to lean towards talking about the music over the lyrics. That's just kind of how we are. But the lyrics for this song are especially tricky to talk about because for a lot of reasons. So I'm going to try to get the spiel out of the way so that we can elaborate or not based on how any one of us is feeling. This song had a very specific meaning, and there was a specific thing in mind when we were writing it, but the amount of people who have connected with it and told us, hey, Vulture means so much to me because of this, or I got through this horrible thing because Vulture was so meaningful to me, was so impactful to us. And we've talked about on the podcast, thinking a song is one thing, and when you find out its true subject, it isn't anywhere near what you thought it was, and it can really dampen or ruin your experience and your connection to that song. So is it about a toxic relationship? Is it about religious trauma? Is it about hypocrisy? Is it about a person with a God complex? Yes to all of those.
It's true. It's a hard thing because we've talked a lot about how we use something that's like macabre or silly or spooky or like just high concept to mask maybe a darker talking point that we're talking about. But this is like a mean hat on a mean hat. This is a sad topic talking about another dark topic.
Sad top hat.
Yeah, it's a sad top hat. It's a trauma song. And I needed to get it out. And I'm still just not ready to talk about the trauma. So I wrote it to be purposefully broad to kind of be able to take meaning on it from a lot of things. And like Andrew said, the amount of people that have come up and told us what the song means to them has been really rewarding and inspiring. At the meet and greets, I would ask frequently if there was like a song that people were really excited to hear. And 95% of the people would say Vulture. And then I would be like, well, we're not playing Vulture, so get out of here.
You know, the personal trauma that the song invokes in me is, have you ever tried to like log on to one of those websites and they try and make you pick things out of a box? I can never figure that shit out. I don't even see a motorcycle.
You couldn't see all the buses? You can't see the stop signs? Come on,
No,
man.
there's no bus on that.
I thought we programmed you.
They all look like buses.
Vulture is about CAPTCHA.
I always thought so.
I feel your pain, and your trauma is just as valuable as the rest of our trauma.
Valuable. Valid.
Your
I'll
trauma is
sell it.
just as valid as the rest of our valid.
Oh, man.
I will say there's the possibility of maybe us doing something with it in the future at live settings in very special situations, maybe just like a solo acoustic performance of it or something like that. But when we put it on the album, it was very clear to us that this was an album track, that it would never be played live.
I think this was like the third or fourth song that we finished writing for the album, and we knew immediately, we're like, this is the ending. This is the end of the album.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people have seen us live, and I'm not as good of a singer live as I am in the studio, in a controlled environment where I can like take breaks and I can retake a take over and over and over again until I get it just as right as I want to. And this song took a very, very long time for me to get it just the way I wanted. And if I can't pull it off live, I just don't see the value in playing it for an audience live. You know what I mean? So
There were days in the studio that we would go in and you'd go in the booth and you'd do takes for like an hour and you'd be like, I don't have it today.
Yep.
And we just leave because we were just like, we have nothing to accomplish today if you're just not getting the takes you want. So
yeah, very expensive too.
Yeah, this is one of the most expensive songs.
Yeah, this was
the album.
a truly expensive song. I would try and have a backup thing prepared. Like, okay, well, we'll work on this if I just can't do Vulture. I would try, but we have a lot of lyrics in our songs, and I usually try and do pretty complex melodies. They switch around a lot, but this was a lot of long, lingering notes, and before doing this song, I just wasn't really used to doing that. So it was like, oh, I didn't realize I didn't have the breath support for this. Things like that.
But sometimes it wasn't about how good your voice sounded. The takes were about invoking a certain feeling or a certain vibe. And you'd go in there and your voice would sound great, but
It wouldn't have the vibe. Then there was the ending. The whole ending for the longest time was about even being able to get through it. So those takes took like a long time. But I'm very, very happy that the diehard fans like it so much because it's just the diehards. I don't think darker songs usually are the most popular on a record anyways. But for me, they've always stuck out the most. And I just love the rug pull of it in this record.
But what weirdly enough is that if you like scour our YouTube comments, like some people will just put Vulture in its own category. Like it kind of blew the thunder away from the whole album.
I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, no,
I remember
it's crazy. It's pretty cool.
I was very frightened to put this song. I'm not particularly good at writing like slow songs. So this was very different for me all the way through, down to the instrumentation choice, down to the way I like tried to lead it thematically throughout the song. And then you cap all that off with it being the most personal song I have. And I think most of our songs, Andrew's written at least 80% of the lyrics.
except Starkiller. You wrote all of Starkiller.
Right. I wrote all of Starkiller. There are other songs where I've written like a higher percentage, but Andrew's always written at least half of them in most cases. This song, I think you wrote.
I wrote what I guess
The
you
second
consider the
verse.
second verse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is only 2 lines.
Right. And then the rest I wrote. So it's like, it's very deeply personal.
Going off of it meaning different things to different people, I had thought of it through a certain lens. And when we were going on tour and we were meeting people like in the South or in Bible Belt states and stuff, that would just be like, oh man, this was vindicating to me because of all the religious trauma that I had growing up. And I'm sure Buttons can attest to that. Buttons was raised Catholic and had some bad experiences. And we had other people that came up to us being like, oh, this inspired me to leave a toxic relationship or a toxic friendship behind. And that means so much more than whatever bullshit that we put behind it.
Yeah, it's amazing how very similar upbringings I had with other people. Going to Catholic school my whole life, and no fault to my parents. Like, they just didn't want me to go to public school because of what they had to deal with, right? I mean, I don't think Catholic schools are the way they are now compared to when I went. I had priests and nuns as teachers, and you did something as like blink or sneeze, like they throw an eraser at you. Like,
It's a sin to blink.
and
It says it right there in the Bible.
First page.
First commandment,
Yeah.
thou shalt not blink.
Thou shalt not sneeze.
anyway, up until about
Also
6th
not
grade,
murder.
that's when I realized I was like, I think I'm being indoctrinated or something. And so I asked my mom, like, Mom, And she's like, no, you're fine. You can think however you want. And after that, everything.
After that, Buttons rode into every Sunday school on a skateboard.
Yep.
Yeah. He had his hat on backwards and a pair of sunglasses, baby.
Dude.
Pretty much.
And that's not even to say that all religion is that way. I mean,
No,
there are
absolutely
certain
not.
people that have
Absolutely
great
not.
religious experiences. Like my partner is religious. Ryan's partner is very religious. And we both respect and understand that. They're just not shitty and super hypocritical about it. And their understanding of the fact that I'm an atheist. I was raised pretty much Protestant. It's Methodist, which is like a offshoot of that. But I went as far as I went through confirmation when I was a teenager and everything. And I just got to a point where I was like just going through like a little bit of a rough patch financially. And they started like guilting us because we weren't giving money to the collection. And I'm just like, yeah, we need to, eat. Right? We don't care about your collection when you have this giant church in the nicest part of town. Like, that is what started driving me away from it, and it just snowballed from there. But we have people really close to us who are super religious, and we respect that.
100%. Anyways, to wrap this up, I know it sounds like a cop-out to say that the song is just too personal to me, but it is. And I think everybody can find meaning in it, and it's one of the things that I'm most proud of. You're allowed to take whatever meaning you want from it. You're allowed to play it as many times as you want, because that turns into money for us, baby. Every time you play it, that's 0.0007 cents in our pockets that we have to split.
We have to pay percentages to our staff and then split the rest of it 3 ways.
Tigbot, do you want to talk more about your CAPTCHA trauma, or?
No, please. So I think the fans would like to know. So, what do you want to do? Yeah, I figured. I was
Is this a Jungle Book
it
reference?
was. I was like, there's a very small chance.
What do you want to do? I don't remember how it goes, but those are the vultures from the Jungle Book that are based off of the Beatles or the Monkeys. Which one is it?
I don't know.
I think it's the Beatles.
And then eventually they just go, well, don't start that again.
Now, don't start that again.
Yeah.
There's my amazing British accent.
Yeah. Anyway, on to music. I actually had a question.
Okay.
Because I don't think I ever asked you this. When we wrote this song, we started with the opening guitar part. And I jammed with you, and I wrote what might be my favorite bass line I've ever written. But very, very late in the recording process, you came in and you did the piano intro. Was that always there?
The piano intro was always a part of it.
Okay. Because I hadn't heard it until you were like, I'm going to put this part at the beginning of the song. And I was just like, oh, did he just write this? And I never asked you.
First of all, initially I wrote it on the guitar. It was very, very difficult to play on the guitar. And I was like, do you want me to just sit here and play this very hard to play guitar part before we come in? The song starts with a synth pad, because I think I always knew that I wanted When I'm Dead to go into this song. So when I decided that, I was like, okay, well, my last key change of When I'm Dead is going to make sure that it puts the song right at the same key as Vulture. So When I'm Dead ends, and that pad starts immediately at the end of When I'm Dead and then seeps into Vulture, so that it just kind of like sets up the mood. I'm really proud of all of the weird, creaky, ominous tones.
Yeah, and you have that, I don't even know what it is. Another thing I never asked you, but there's like a thing in the pre-choruses.
There's like a crashing sound or some kind of sound effect.
Like it sounds like that little thing that you hit that goes like, but like slowed it down a bunch and
It's just
put a bunch of reverb on it.
I took a snap and I pitched it down.
Oh, that's so cool.
I was like, well, this is where a snare would be, so I want something that's going to be kind of like ominous. So yeah, it's just a snap that I put a bunch of reverb on, pitched way down. That whole bridge is something I'm like really proud of, because that was the last time I wrote like an overly complex guitar part. Because initially I was playing that chromatic rising piano part, my guitar part, and the bass part all on the guitar. It was a cool flex. But I was like, this is so needlessly complicated, and no one's going to appreciate it or be able to hear it. And it creates so much better of a vibe split into different instruments that all create their own like musical atmosphere, and made it so that I could apply more effects and stuff to things. And that's another thing. We're not a very effects heavy band, and this has a lot more like delays and reverbs and swells and reverse sounds going on than any song that we've ever done by far.
Yeah,
So
even when we do sound checks live and we get to the part where we're testing vocals, the sound guys are always just like,
how much reverb do you want, mate?
and we're just like, no, dry.
Dry with a D. Sounded like you said try.
I'm sick. Can't pronounce my D's. On the topic of snares, too, it was a conscious decision.
It was a conscious decision.
It was a conscious decision.
Decision?
It was a conscious
decision.
It was a conch shell decision.
It was a conscious decision to not put any snares in the choruses, and there's not one until the ending.
Ending, yeah.
Well, in the choruses, because in the verses there's snare.
Yeah, and there is in the whole bridge part.
It was, yeah, I really wanted it to just build. I needed when the final chorus hit, not even the final chorus, because the third chorus, when that comes in, it's still building. But then I have the evolution of the chorus. We can call it like chorus B, which only happens once in the song. If I Abandon Dignity, that whole part, that's where the snares come in. And it's more straightforward all of a sudden. So it feels like a huge cathartic release. There's such an influx of emotion going on there. And I feel like finally resolving. It's like the drum equivalent to having your fifth and then resolving to your tonic. We're talking about the drums a lot without a single word from Buttons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it was weird in the verses where I was hitting a snare on the second, third. It's like,
Are you talking about the
pre-choruses,
in the
yeah.
pre-choruses?
the pre-choruses, yeah. I thought that was so weird to me. And you were on the floor, Andrew, and I
Sounds
think
about right.
I think you were in the bathroom, Ryan, and we were trying to
That
get
sounds
this
about right.
part down, and you had to like lift your leg up just for me to hit the snare.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I was laying on my back while we were playing through this part. And
Yeah.
he's like, I don't know where this snare is supposed to be. And every time the snare was supposed to happen, I would just kick my leg up in the air. And that's how we learned that.
I remember those days.
On the topic of that chorus B, as we're calling it, you and I had a very long back and forth. It wasn't like an argument. And the fact that up until a certain point in the song, there are no major chords anywhere. And you had one in the bridge riff leading into the last chorus, but you were like, I want to take this out because I want the first major chord to be in that chorus B. And I talked you into keeping it it's just one chord, but
I know there are major chords before that. It's just that I don't change the key to major.
maybe that was the discussion.
In the second half of the bridge, when it's more focused on the riff and it doesn't have the solo, that does kind of change the key, but it's more based on the riff. You don't hear the bedding. I mean, I have a church organ there playing the major chord, but it's not quite the same. And then it sneaks into the key change when we come in with the If I Abandon Dignity part, and it goes up a major third and it becomes the major chord. Speaking of that solo part, in the first part of the bridge, going into the studio, I had no idea what I was going to use to get the effects to make that solo sound that way. I want it to be like super fuzzy. I wanted to have some sort of like delay on it. And when we were setting all the pedals up for me to play around with, I was playing out of this guitar with active pickups. And I was like trying to talk to our engineer, Jeremy. And I was like, I want it to sound kind of like, but like when I was doing that,
It was not like a
my voice was coming through the pickups. There is a guitar part doing the but the other part is through all my pedals and stuff. I picked up my guitar and I just sang that into the pickups. So you're like hearing my voice sung through a guitar in that whole part,
super
which is
cool.
it's one of my favorite things. And I
That's
don't
for
really,
the guitar solo thing.
yeah.
I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Thanks, man.
That is like probably the most I've ever seen like a clear Muse influence.
It was super Muse. Actually, the whole song
Yeah.
is very Muse
Yeah.
influenced. I think it's a little bit darker than a lot of stuff that they do. I mean, they do some dark stuff on the first couple records. but
Starlight.
There's so much freaking stuff I'm super excited about. The second verse brings in the string swells. There's like super Portishead influenced, so I was excited to have those in there. Did a lot of synths in the choruses, and one thing we did that was really weird too is the choruses just kick, just do, and crash cymbals every time. So it's just like, which is something I'd really wanted to do for a long time,
I thought
and
the crash cymbals were every other kick.
they are.
No, you're thinking of the China,
The Chinas take the place of where a snare
where
would
the
be.
snare would be. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. In a weird way, this has some EDM structure to it.
Yeah, because EDM, it's like
It's
they're
just constant building, until you get to that.
Well, another thing, too, that I kind of relied heavily on is my fascination with worship music. If you guys have ever been to a church that has a live band that's playing the more modern worship stuff, they're almost always building. And there was just kind of something to that with what I was doing thematically in the song, but they never resolve the way I want them to. And when they do, they're mixed. It's not that worship music is mixed badly. It's just that it's mixed so that it can't swing you to the devil's side.
It sounds like you're saying warship.
Yeah,
every time.
you pronounce that so hard that it sounds like you're saying warship.
Worship?
You gotta Americanize it. Just turn it into a U.
Yeah.
Worship?
Yeah,
There you
there you go.
No way.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about like World War II worship. I'm like, oh,
Worship.
Worship?
Yeah, worship.
You guys are saying worship.
Yeah,
Worship.
that-
Everybody
I've
says
never
that
heard
shit
anybody
anymore.
No one has ever said worship.
I've
You're
never
the
heard
only
someone
one
say
who
worship.
doesn't.
What?
Literally ever in my life.
Okay, wait. On this topic, I want to go around and hear how everybody pronounces BOTH. Buttons, you first.
botch. Oh, BOTH, both.
Okay,
Why'd I put a C in there?
do.
Both.
Both.
You guys all do both.
Both.
I want to know. We should put it in the poll for this episode is how many people pronounce it both.
Do you?
No.
With an L.
Okay.
I would say that most people I hear do. My fiance, who is a speech pathologist and is directly in charge of impacting how kids will speak for the rest of their lives, says both. And Did you hear that little?
Yeah.
She says both. It doesn't drive me as crazy as it used to. But another thing that she says is rune instead of ruin. And
I don't like that.
that one is bonkers to me.
That reminds me of how people say crayon instead of crayon.
Well,
like CRAN.
That's one of those things where you say crayon when you're a child, but eventually you go, oh, it's crayon.
Well, and the same thing with both. It's like a lazy colloquialism. Like you're kind of skipping.
I mean, that's essentially how the entire American accent was formed.
Right.
though.
Well, I was going to say.
Yeah, but I mean, we all say library when we're a kid, and it's
we
not
do?
I didn't.
like off.
Along the lines of the both thing, though, the one that
It makes me feel like they're gagging on their tongue.
both. The one that gets me is when people say something.
That's wild.
I hate it.
Andrew had a roommate pronounced almonds almonds.
And she's from the south.
Ammons?
It's not incorrect, though.
She made an argument immediately that made me question myself. I was just like, "There's an L in it. It's almonds," and she's like, "Say salmon." And I was just like,
I knew this guy whose parents owned a farm.
And they invented the word almonds?
Yes, they did.
Wow.
They all called it almonds. I mean, I feel like you're a little bit more legit since guys actually grow them for a living, but
All right, how about February?
Yeah,
I'd say it with an R in
I
it.
pronounced
Yeah.
the "ru" in it, definitely,
I do.
The amount of slack I've gotten for saying clothes with like a TH in it.
instead of just clothes.
Yeah. I think most people say clothes.
I say
Yeah,
clothes.
people say
I
clothes.
say clothes.
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 I'd probably say clothes.
You got a soft TH in there.
Yeah,
Clothes.
I mean, I tend to try and pronounce things properly, but I'm
Mhm.
also lazy. So I get it. I get when people do these.
I got into an argument with someone that I worked with a while back, and I apologized the next day because I was out of line, but they kept saying caramel. I was like, caramel is colloquially accepted. It is
It is.
It is absolutely in the definition of like, you can pronounce it this way, but I'm just like, it made me so mad that I was like, it's just because lazy Americans didn't want to say caramel that it exists in the first place.
I would totally excuse caramel. Of course, yeah, you got the second A. But when people say caramel, no, that's a place in California, and it's spelled that way.
The piano part at the end.
Oh yeah, what the fuck's up with that?
What the f*** is up with that?
It's weird because it's not in the same tempo. A lot of times, especially when I first started really writing music and I didn't have any lyrical ability, I would just be like, well, the instrumental of this song is how I feel, and then people can write whatever lyrics they want over it. This is what I was feeling. And when getting the song recorded, getting all my vocals for it recorded, I genuinely started to finally feel a small lift. Like I'd just taken a couple rocks out of my backpack before continuing on my journey of sadness. And that song just sprang to me. And so I immediately went to my piano and I just started trying to work it out the way it sounded in my head. And it's one of the worst played things on the entire record because I'm not a good piano player, but it meant a lot to me to put in. It's melancholic, but it also has like a weird air of hope to it.
Which ties together the whole name of the album.
Exactly. Literally exactly. What are you laughing at?
Literally, exactly.
Literally exactly.
What's the opposite of an oxymoron?
Hydromoron?
Hydro smart
Smarty.
guy.
Hydro smart guy.
Here at Filthy Willie's Motormobilities, we've got the trucks you need, biggest you've ever seen. Trucks so big, you'll be confident in all your opinions, including that everyone thinks you're a real cool guy. Are you right? Almost certainly not. But you'll never be able to hear anyone say otherwise because you're sitting so friggin' high up. Comes with a trampoline you gotta jump on just to reach the driver's seat. You want horsepower? We got more than enough to tow your deep-seated need for approval. But hey, maybe you don't want folks thinking you yell at waiters. Or maybe you ain't got nothing to prove. Maybe, just maybe, you're ready for Tiny Tough Trucks. That's right, introducing our brand new sub compact line of trucks so small they legally qualify as jewelry. You don't drive them so much as wear them like a little sandal. Tiny Tough Trucks are so small, people won't think you're compensating for anything. They'll assume you've got emotional depth, the respect of your children, and a killer sourdough starter at home. Who needs horsepower? Each Tiny Tough Truck is powered by the confidence of a man who's been to therapy. The moment people see you behind the wheel of a Tiny Tough Truck, they won't think he's compensating. No, sir. They'll think, bet that guy calls their grandma every Sunday. They absolutely listen during conversations. That person definitely has a signature lasagna that makes people cry. I bet he can convince my kids to talk to me again. Now there's someone who doesn't even need to defend their loved ones from swooping owls. The horn lets out a cheerful howdy neighbor. When you honk it, people thank you. And if you hit the brakes too hard, the truck folds politely into a tiny cube and apologizes for taking up space. Tiny Tough Trucks. Drive small, feel big, confuse everyone.
Tiny Tough Trucks are officially designated as choking hazards. That's Vulture. We got any Discord questions?
Nico asks, which musical or musical theater is your favorite and why?
Which musical theater is my favorite?
I guess either pick a musical or the theater.
I think I rearranged that question for clarity and I made it worse. Sorry, Nico.
This is a question that I dread because it makes me feel like a flippin' poser, bro.
I'm going to have a similar answer.
I'm going to cut right to it and just say that I know for theater kids, it's like a lame answer, but I love Hamilton. And it's not because of the music. It's just the tale and that all the dialogue is just like wrapped throughout the whole thing. It's very, very cool. Other than that, my early love of musical theater, I'm saying this in quotes, was Disney movies. And I loved the Disney movies, but then it'd be like, okay, the Broadway versions of the Disney movies. The Broadway version of The Little Mermaid has some of my favorite they were not in the original movie at all, but bring the good times back. And there's a lot of good songs. Poor Child, Sweet Child. I'm getting all these names wrong. But the Addams Family musical, this is horrifying.
We're not as educated on this as you want us to be.
No,
Yeah.
I've heard all the normal,
Like,
the musicals that everybody knows of,
Les
but I'm not
Mis and
like,
Phantom of the Opera.
Sure,
and
but
Cats
I'm
and
just-
West Side Story.
yeah, like all the big ones. I've seen Oklahoma. I've done all of that, but like I could not tell you what's on Broadway right now.
I'm supposed to go to New York in October, and I really want to see Hell's Kitchen when I'm there.
Hadestown.
Yeah, I've heard Hadestown is great. I want to see that as well.
I've listened to Hadestown. It's great. So like that's the thing is like I hear about a new musical and I listen to the cast album pretty much. A lot of times I'll take a lot from that musical and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. The Legally Blonde musical, really good music on that, guys. Just throwing that out there.
How about you, Buttons?
My dad gave me one of his Phantom of the Opera cassettes back in the day when I had the first Walkman. And then when I was in high school, Friday nights, we used to go to the theater and just watch Rocky Horror. But this was the theater where they had actors acting as the movie was playing.
While the movie was playing, I went and seen some of those.
So fun.
I've went and seen some of those. Is that a sentence?
Did they do that here? Or-
Yeah.
Oh, sick. I thought it was a LA thing only. And I got dragged to Wicked once. I fell in love with that.
Oh, nice.
And,
I actually like a more traditional style Broadway score. I'm not really down on like the contemporary sound. Like
right.
like everything kind of ushered in like the 90s with like that kind of Rent sound or even Dear Evan Hansen. I can't really get into those kinds of like okay, we're going to put this back into perspective of Disney. Tangled. I like that movie. I like the soundtrack. But anything that sounds like the opening track of that movie, that's the sound. It's like this contemporary, like acoustic guitar, cool, like pop drums and stuff, and not like big theatrical strings and horns and things that sound like more magical and whimsical. I tend to like more, or big, sweeping, dark stuff.
Back to your Tangled thing, though, I will say this, and I will die on this hill. Tangled's way better than Frozen.
Tangled is way better than
That's not
Frozen.
even close.
And the music
Yeah.
is way better.
Okay.
Here's what I will say. The frickin' Olaf song from the first Frozen's pretty good, but from Frozen 2, it's so good.
It's so good. It's
so
like a rock
good.
ballad. It's so good.
You're thinking of a
You're
different
thinking
song.
of
Oh, I'm thinking of the Kristoff song.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I like that one too.
I like that one. I don't know why.
But that's another example is the Olaf song is much more classical. It's
Yeah.
like more traditional music theater. And I love that kind of stuff. Tigbot, do you have any musical theater that you want to talk about?
No. We've got another one from Diamond Dump.
Two from Diamond Dump.
Yep. What is your favorite not so popular band?
Well, I have a million of these.
Same, which is why I asked it.
Yeah.
Because
I don't even know where to begin.
while you're thinking, I'm going to shout out a local artist that I freaking love, Bougainvillea.
Tigbot is literally draped in a Bougainvillea t-shirt
I
right
didn't
now.
even realize that. But as far as somebody that's like not local, the Dodos is always
I love the Dodos. Speaking of, there's a band called The Doe that I absolutely love. I had them on our changeover track for the tour. Not so much these days, but I was a huge fan of like the Lemon Twigs. I love Igor. That's with 3 R's. Miniature Tigers, Roar. Is Miniature Tigers a bigger band?
no.
They're kind of miniature.
That's really funny. The Bombay Royale. You know what I want to do is I want to shout out like artists that were big that nobody gave the time of day because they were like on pop radio. Has anybody ever heard of Yael Naim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Yael Naim. So she got popular with her song New Soul. That's the only song on her record that sounds anything like that. But she's like a French Israeli artist. She writes all of her own stuff. And that album that song is on is so haunting. I got so much inspiration from that record, and her melodies are so good. On this podcast, people have basically heard me just be like, Limp Bizkit. You know?
Corn, Limp Bizkit.
Corn, Limp
Just slow
Bizkit,
down.
or Will Wood,
Yeah.
you know, but like that is not indicative of the stuff that I listen to on a wider.
Regina Spektor, who
Oh
got
my gosh,
she
I
got,
love
like,
Regina Spektor. Yeah, and
a
she,
huge song, right? But I would say like a lot of people think that's what she sounds like,
Mm.
and that's like not very indicative of her actual.
Some of these bands that I still consider to be small, have like blown up to have massive success. Like St. Vincent was one of my little pocket bands for a little bit. Now pretty much everybody knows who St. Vincent is.
She played with Nirvana.
Did she? Wow.
In the original lineup?
Yeah, before Kurt Cobain joined the band.
Okay.
If anyone wants to listen to some like steampunk nightmare music, you can listen to Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum.
Oh my gosh!
how
are
did we not
How
mention
are we
that?
not thinking about that? Best live band I've ever seen. Sleepy
Yeah.
Time
they're
Gorilla Museum.
so good.
I'd recommend listening to Powerless or
God.
Sleep is Wrong.
Sleep is Wrong.
is how I first got
Yeah.
introduced. Yeah.
What's my favorite song?
and Boogaton. We went and saw Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum here in Phoenix. It was the best show ever. But Dew was very uncharacteristically drunk.
Unintentionally. I don't know. how that happened.
Unintentionally, but they're like in the middle of playing songs, and Andrew's just like, "Hey, Boogaton, please."
So much so that the singer rolled his eyes at me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel very bad because I hate when people do
At
that
the
to us. So.
after the show, like they were out there meeting people and stuff, and the main female in the group, she was just like, "Hey, were you the guy screaming at Boogaton?"
I know that they're in our vein, but I'm sure some listeners would be very excited to hear that I'm like a huge Tub Ring fan.
We mentioned Diablo Swing on here, haven't we?
We have, for
Yeah.
sure. Mother. I know they're a lot bigger now, but that's a band that I absolutely adore.
Future Islands, but they've gotten way bigger.
Right, yeah.
Spaceman Bob.
Spaceman Bob, give him a listen. If you guys want to get back into the new metal wave, there's a band out there called Silly Goose that I really enjoy, but mostly for the riffs. I think that they're
A little too silly.
I just think that
Little too goosey.
their vocals are mixed way too loud, and it bothers me.
I think that was enough. I think we said plenty.
Firecracker Jazz Band.
Firecracker Jazz Band.
Listen to their version of Sweet Georgia Brown. It's like
Oh, it's the best.
it's my favorite thing ever. If anybody out there hasn't heard of Bear Ghost, you know, they're a little bit of a smaller band. This is actually a really good way to go out. Spotify does not want us reaching over 400,000
Yeah,
monthly
what the
listeners.
hell?
Yeah, what is up with that?
Every single time we've gotten close, we just start plummeting in monthly listeners and then slowly working our way back up. Over the last 2 weeks, we've been at 399,100 monthly listeners, and it just keeps fluctuating by like 100 people every day. If we can break 400,000 monthly listeners
Just for a day.
just for one day, I will feel like the prince of all
Egypt. I hope you guys enjoyed the penultimate episode of Bear Goes and
Yeah, should we talk about that really quick? Because I don't think we laid it out that there was going to be like a shelf life.
Yeah, there's a shelf life, guys. Bye.
But we have one more Kickstarter cover. And then we had the week off where we talked about the tour. So we need to do a cover for that as well.
So the not penultimate episode of Bear Goes and
Yeah. I will just say that we're coming to an end of this season here, and we don't quite know what we're going to do after that, because we don't really have a premise without talking about Jiminy and the covers that we're doing. But the good news for everybody is that when we're not doing covers, that means we're
Partying down.
We're partying down on writing the new record.
Cowabunga, dude. Full circle.
And on that note, this has been Bear Ghost Invents, the podcast. Goodbye.
Bossa Nova.
Happy birthday.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. Special thanks to our Kickstarter backers. Next week, we don't know what we're doing yet, so stay tuned. Love you. See you then.